Okay, I'm here with Rose. I have I think, important guest. So Rose, which is an alias, I should say, is a human trafficking survivor who has, from her story, I've read some similarities with some of the Tate case, and that's been in the news and that I've covered on my channel a bit. So Rose has started telling a story in the media in Switzerland and getting quite a bit of coverage there. So first you told your story in Das Magazine. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. And told us the story of what she went through and her experience in a comic that was yeah, really powerful. And then recently she's done an interview on SRF, on the SRF Club show, I believe it is, which is, I understand, one of or the biggest network in Switzerland. So it's kind of been really putting these issues that have been, yeah, I guess, starting to get a bit of recognition, a bit more coverage over in that part of the world. So, firstly, Rose, thank you for joining me for this
Hello,
conversation and chatting.
thank you so much. I want to start out by saying I'm very appreciative that I can meet you with you and talk together about this. I have been trafficked 6 years ago, but it didn't start there. It didn't start at the moment when I was trafficked in Switzerland. It started when I was a young girl, when I was impressionable, when I was coming home from school, and these rich men who wanted to use me saw me. And the reason why I did come forward with my story, the reason why I did come forward with my comic, which made lots of waves in Switzerland, it had many, many reactions. And the reason why I also did the interview is because, not because of fame, that's why I didn't necessarily show my face, it's reason to spread awareness. And even if my story can say one girl, one life, then I think we made a difference in the world. And I have been following the Tate brothers case, I would say for 2 years. And one thing that really, really upset me for a very, very long time is the way the Tate brothers deny their trafficking allegations. What they always say that, oh, the girls of how they would call them, the whores, they were never kidnapped. You can see the CCTV footage, they were never chained. And that's a big, big lie because the world doesn't know about the lover boy trafficking method. And I would say maybe 95, 96% of the world's population doesn't know about that. And that's what the Tate bros really took that, the people that they don't know about it, and they capitalized it from it. They manipulated their fans, they manipulated the media, they manipulated so, so many people. And I was trafficked by the lover boy method. And it's actually much more common than the kidnapping part or the, as you would say, chained up part. And I believe that people need to know about it. There needs to be uh, there, there needs to be an education about it because as long as there's denial, as long as people say, well, that doesn't exist, that's just a woman being a whore, as long as that happens, people like Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate can get away from it and gain support, and the woman will be the victim, not the victims, but be villainized and be the perpetrators. So I'm very happy to be in this interview with you.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of confusion. I mean, the Loverboy method was, for example, something I hadn't heard of before the Tate's case, but
Neither.
but it's just been creating even more confusion with how they've been talking about it and how they're friends. I had a bit of a back and forth with Myron Gaines on Twitter about this a few days ago. It's creating a lot of confusion. One for the young male followers, but
Mm,
also I guess that can cause a lack of awareness with women and young girls as well
mm,
about the situation, these kind of situations that can come in. So what I wanted to do was, as you said, because it starts from your childhood, and I feel like your story in kind of starting from the start can really add a lot of context. From what I know about your story already, I know that there's some parallels to some common themes with this kind of trafficking, I guess, that I've seen with the Tate cases and this kind of trafficking in general. But firstly, just to confirm, so you before we start going back and adding this context, you were not physically restrained in a room with,
No, I wouldn't
yeah,
say so. Don't imagine I was chained up, but there was, as I said, a threatening mental gymnastics. The way they threatened you, manipulated you, so they kept you in their room mentally. The way I read the Tate brothers case, that's what they did. So I wasn't necessarily chained. I wasn't in that way. No.
sure. And so if we go back to, I guess, yeah, paint the picture of how your story started. So can you tell me a bit about like your childhood and even before these experiences started happening? Can you paint the picture of like what kind of childhood you had and what
Mhm.
kind of like environments that you were in when these things you noticed started happening?
Of course, I would start up by saying I have to start from the beginning because I think it's very important to start from the beginning in my story. So, my mother was a Serbian Bosnian. My father was a Bosnian. And of course, after the bloody and terrible Yugoslav war, they were still together, but my father grew resentment against my mother because she was Serbian. And, you know, there's lots of pain, there's lots of trauma still there. And he didn't get out of the relationship. I would say he wasn't man enough to get out of it. And I was born in 2000. My brother was born 2 years before me. My father found a new family, a sacred new family with a real Bosnian woman who people would accept, and my mom, she knew that there was no future for me and my brother in Bosnia because we couldn't go to a Serbian school, we would be bullied. We couldn't go to a Bosnian school, we would be bullied. And she said, "Hey, can we just go to Czechoslovakia or Czechia, or we go to Canada, where children can be safe?" And my father, he knew that he wanted to leave us. He said, "Okay." He said to my mom, "Let's call my mom. I'll call her Mila for the interview." He said, "Mila, let's go to Hungary. Let's wait a couple years until I make some money for us, and then we can go further." And what happened? He left us there in this very, very small town in Hungary without any money, without any connections. He took my passport when I was a baby, meaning my mom, she couldn't go home to Bosnia. She couldn't go home to Serbia. Basically, my mom was stuck in the middle of Hungary with two crying little babies, with no help, with nothing. My father just left. And so we were very beautiful children, me and my brother. What could my mom do? She sent us to kindergarten, and we were forced to learn Hungarian. We learned also very quickly English. And I think from the very start, me and my brother, we wanted to belong somewhere. And I don't want to compare anyone's troubles, but really in Hungary, in that small town, we were only Serbians, the only Serbians and Bosnians in that city. We were looked upon like we were dogs, like very, very, very hateful, and we never felt like we belonged. And that's where my brother in kindergarten met my pimp. I'm gonna call him by his real name because his real name is out there, Mark. So I knew Mark since kindergarten, basically. I always knew him as the friend of my brother. And it was a very small town. And the more me and my brother grew up, the more we faced reality. I just saw I was going to school. I didn't fit in with the other girls because I didn't have shoes, which they had. I had to wear my brother's shoes because my mom didn't have money to buy me new ones. And then the kids were bullying me. The kids were making fun of me. They called us every name in the book, me and my brother. And when you're a child, there are things when we need, every human being. We need acceptance, we need love, we need comfort, we need stability. And ours wasn't met. So me and my brother, especially me, we grew up with lots and lots of insecurities. So when I entered I would say maybe high school, no, when I was 12, I started to get very, very beautiful. I had long, I mean, I already had some curves. Other than that, I was very, very beautiful. And just to paint the picture, I was just coming home from school. It's also in the comic. I was 12 years old, and this man who might have been in his late 30s or his 40s, he just stopped me and he said, "You're the most beautiful girl I have ever seen. I really want to get to know you. What can you do then?" I was like, I had no idea, exactly what to do, but it was already the time. I remember the first time when I was sexualized, and then come high school. Again, I was bullied and bullied and bullied because I couldn't even buy deodorant because we didn't have even money for that. And I was crying to my mom. I was like, "Mom, I'm staying. I'm staying. The kids are bullying me. I cannot even go to school." And she couldn't even buy deodorant. And then you just grow up in that household where you have nothing and you want everything. And I never experienced love from my father. I never had a relationship with a man. So I was very, very naive. And then when I was 15 or 16, there was a very, very cold winter in my city. And as I said, it's a small city, maybe 40, 50,000 people live there. And everyone knew about me. Usually, when you're the hot girl in the best high schools, they know about me, but they knew especially about me. And there was a circle of rich men in my city, like this underground. And they were like, "Oh, there's this, very poor girl, very naive girl. She doesn't have a father. Her mother doesn't speak any Hungarian. Her mother doesn't have any connections. Nothing. We can use her just like that." And they would just approach me and they were like, "Hey, I will give you 10,000 forints." I believe 10,000 forints maybe in US dollars can be, oh, I'm not too sure. Not that much. So really not that much. But for me, I was like, maybe I can buy bread for my family that week. And they were like, "Yeah, but you have to do oral sex on me." Oh, and the thing is, they knew that I was so innocent that I didn't even know that was illegal. And even if I knew who's going to take me to the police, my mom, who doesn't speak any Hungarian, the father, who I don't have, the money, which we don't have, I was the perfect candidate to do this with, to toy around and play around. So that very, very cold winter, they just pushed me around between each other in the groups. Like, "Here's the girl, she can suck you off." And there was this person who also asked news from me, and I was 16 or 17. So basically, he engaged in child pornography. That's jail time, and I had no idea that man could go to prison. So lots of those things happened, and I was very unhappy. I was sad about it, but just the joy to feel, to see my mom the first time happy in weeks, that we are able to eat, that we are able to have heating in our apartment. I think that overruled the sadness which I felt in those moments when I had to pleasure those men. And again, I had so many insecurities still. I was very naive. Because I didn't have a father, I looked everywhere for love. I thought, maybe if this man only shows me a little bit of kindness, oh, that means, you know what, I'm gonna accept it. And I think that's how it went until I was 18 years old when I was offered the work in Vienna. And that's like the next chapter.
Yeah, and I guess there's a lot of things that, I mean, one, the winter in where you were is quite different to the winter here in Australia, for example. And as like that young girl, what kind of, it's just hard to wrap your head around, like put yourself in those shoes with that kind of poverty that you were in. What kind of did you think of as far as, how would I say this? What would happen if I don't do this? Like, what did that picture look like for you? Did that mean like not
I mean, it's
eating?
everything. So if I didn't suck that old man's penis, my mom, she would have been aggressive. My mom was an alcoholic, and I'm here to blame her because she had a very hard life. She also survived the Boston War, but her nerves were already done. She would have been yelling. We didn't have heating. We didn't have food. We were taking like flour, mixing it with water, and just making all these weird pancakes. And then I had to go to school, and then people would come that I stink because I didn't have deodorant. And all those just those terrible things. And also keep in mind, I was a young girl. I was in my hormones. I was in my teens. I wanted to have new clothes. I wanted to have new shoes. I wanted to have a boy. All of those things. And we didn't also have heating. I also had a hamster at that time. And I just found that everything is just so horrible. And maybe if I do this little sacrifice and never tell anyone, never tell my family, never tell no one. And I remember just coming home when I earned that money. And I get to mom, I was like, Mom, like, oh, like there's a friend of mine, Linda, she owed me money, like from a long time ago, don't you remember? And just to see my mom happy, just that we have food on the table for a couple of days or heating, I think that somewhat made it okay in my mind.
Okay. And how, so where did it progress from there? So, because I understand it kind of gradually escalated. So, where did that kind of situation take you next?
So it was 2018, I was in March, February, and there was this another rich guy who was sometimes in what, oh, again, him. One time I met him in 2017, December, and I asked him, hey, I need a little bit of money just to buy something, some food. And he gave it to me, and I was like, hey, that's amazing, very nice. And a couple of days later, he contacted me and he said, hey, I'll give you money. You need to come to a hotel room with me. And I was still 17 years old, and I was like, what can I even do? He's gonna contact my mom. I don't know. So I went with him. He gave me cocaine. So I was only 17 years old. And he made me suck his dick. He even recorded it, actually. Yes, I just, again, child pornography. But I was so naive, and I was under drugs, under so much influence that I thought it's normal. And then he said, like, Rose, you know that I have a contact in Vienna, and they run very, very fancy, very beautiful, very discreet, organized erotic massage studio. And I was like, at that point, I also left school because I was bullied so hard, and also because at that time I didn't have insurance. I didn't have health insurance because I didn't have my nationality yet. I should have gotten it, but that's also a long story. I didn't have it yet, so every time I was sick and I had to go to a doctor, I had to pay a lot of money, but my mom didn't have that money, so I didn't go to the doctor, and that's when I got kicked out of school because I didn't have a document that I was sick. So I was also hiding that from my mom. So when it was winter and I need to go to school, I would just go out in a park and sit the whole day outside because I just couldn't. I was so young and I had so many secrets, which I shouldn't have. And then he offered me, if you go to Vienna, like you can make so much money. No one has to touch you. And I mean, no one has to like sleep with you. What can I do? I accepted. What else? And it was literally my 18th birthday. Literally in the of middle of April. I went out on the day of my birthday to Vienna. I took a car. And well, I don't know which lie I told to my mom at that point. I made something very convincing because my mom, even though we were poor, but she would have never ever allowed me to be a prostitute. She would never put me in that situation. Um, so I went out, and when I came there, you also saw pictures which I sent to you, which were made professionally in Vienna. And when that was, I you can say many things about prostitution, but it was a very beautiful place. I also got a certificate from the Austrian police that I can work there, that I am a sex worker and that I'm healthy. So it was legit. So it wasn't nothing illegal. It was, I would actually paint it. It was a very nice place, even if we think about what it is actually, but it was legitimately a very nice place. I also every time it was like the customers will come all around the world from Dubai, from New York, banker, surgeon, and there was even politicians, and they would always pick out the girl. Usually they always pick me, and I would wonder why did they? Because of my innocence, because I was so young, because I was always so cute. I always like hello, like I think they felt this innocence from me, and maybe that's what they wanted. And but usually I made in 1 week, let's say on average 2,500 euros per week, just by doing the massage. And also the owner of that place, who probably was 40 years older than me, took me as his favorite. He took me out shopping, he took me to dinners. He never went on me, he never assaulted me or anything, but you could say I was his favorite, but I was only 18 years old. But I was already very, very unhappy about it. I wasn't happy at all. I had all that money, which I always wished for in my life, always. I can finally buy myself new shoes. I can go to hairdresser. I can, with that money, I bought my mom new furniture, which we didn't have in 18 years. I was so happy, but then I started to use drugs that month because I remember one time when I was holding all that money in my hand, thousands and thousands of euros, and I was just crying. I was crying. I was a young girl shouldn't be doing this. This is not what I wanted. This is never what I wanted. So it did affect me a lot. And that summer, I went back home to my home city and I started using drugs because it was like a festival season. But I started using really heavily I would say MDMA because there was something missing. I had the money. I mean, I was like, Rose, this is all you ever dreamed about. You should be happy, right? No, absolutely not. And all I also want to add, my biggest thing was that no one will ever know what I'm doing in Vienna. For me, that was very important that no one in my city knows about that because if anyone ever finds out, I would be shamed, I would be ridiculed. It's almost like, have you seen the movie from Monica Bellucci, Malena?
No, I can't say I have.
Well, Monica Bellucci, yes, it's set during the Second World War, and Malena was a very, very, very beautiful woman in a small town in Italy, and it was the Second World War. The Germans came, and because she lost her husband, she started to sell herself in that city, so she can get food. And in that city, in the end started to beat her, to spit on her. They were already jealous, and I just knew I would get the same treatment. It's not like Zurich, it's not like New York. That's a really small town in Hungary where rumor will follow you for the rest of your life. So that was a very hard period of time for me to balance everything, to keep everything a secret from my mom, to deal with everything as an 18-year-old who already has so much, trauma, which I didn't even know about. Everyone knew me there. I was already famous, maybe because I was the only Serbian there, maybe because I was the hot chick, maybe because I was a whore, maybe many reasons, who knows? But everyone knew me, and that was my biggest fear. And also, as I said in the interview with SRF, there's no girl who wakes up as a girl and says, I want to be a prostitute one day. Everyone says I want to be a princess or I want to be a chef or anything. So that's a delusion. But I can say anyone who says, oh my God, I'm a sex worker, it's an empowerment, that's the biggest lie ever. That's the biggest, and maybe life is what made them that way, but that's not how they were born. So, that summer, I went back again to Vienna, but because I was already so depressed, you could feel it on me. I knew I'm not happy, and I didn't make that much as before. I mean, I did make so maybe per week 1,500, which might be a lot, but not compared how much I made before. And then I went back to my city again in Hungary, and there was this big party. I was already very drunk, very I just want to escape reality, and that's where my future pimp, approached me. Mark, as I said, I knew him since kindergarten because he went in the same kindergarten class with my brother, and then he went to the same an elementary school class with my brother. So I knew him. It wasn't nothing that I was scared about, and he told and he's and then he told me, he said, Rose, I know about your doings in Vienna. And when I tell you that my heart dropped to my stomach, it dropped to the deepest pits in my stomach. I couldn't believe it. My biggest fear came true, and I was like, how do you know that? He said, like the driver who drove you there, he's one of my friends, and he told me. And at that moment, I was like, what can I even do? The thing about Mark is, as you can imagine him, no disrespect to Ronaldo, but he kind of looks like Cristiano Ronaldo. So he was kind of handsome, and he was very aggressive, and he's very rude, and he's very assertive. And as I said, he knew me since kindergarten. He knew my family was very poor. He knew my mom was an alcoholic and depressed. He knew that I was a very insecure girl, both me and my brother. And he knew that I am very easily manipulated. And he knew if something happened to me, no one would believe me or no one would be looking for me. I think that's a textbook, um, really, for the human traffickers. And he brought me back home that night. He promised me some booze and drunk. That night, he raped me. And I have to emphasize that I was a very, very, very shy girl back then. And everyone knew that. I was a yes person, I was a people pleaser, and I was very heavily under the influence, and he knew that. And he told me basically, hey, it's okay. Like, you seem very bad. I can really help you. You know that we know each other from kindergarten. I really like you. He said that, in Switzerland, you don't have to do the ship Vienna job anymore. In Switzerland, it's so much more money. It's so luxurious. Like, we're gonna go on holidays. I'm gonna love you. You can trust me. I know your brother since kindergarten. And I think in my mind, it spent, oh my God, he's gonna tell my biggest secret. If I say no, I'm gonna lose my family. I'm gonna lose everyone in the city. And I was like, okay, maybe there's a future for me somewhere in this world. Maybe it's Switzerland. So at that point, I just gave up hope on everything. So I didn't have a future. I wasn't looking forward to anything. And he was very threatening. He was like, yeah, like, Rose, and right now you're gonna give me the money, to buy your ticket. You're gonna say no or yes. So he's very, very pushy. And he only gave me like 2, 3 days. And he was like, yeah, we're going, to Switzerland. And I had a very, very bad feeling, but as I said, I was very people pleasing, in a very vulnerable situation. I needed the money. I was scared of him. I was scared that people would find out. And so I eventually, I was like, you know what, 1 week, 2 weeks, what's going to happen? And I said yes. And that's when the next chapter comes in.
So just to make sure I understand this correctly, so you were at the I'm sorry, I forgot the city where you said that first place was that you went to.
Vienna.
Vienna, that's right.
Yes.
And then you went back home, linked up, came across Mark, found out this information, and then he's
Mm-hmm.
taking you to another place, to
Yeah.
Switzerland,
To
to yeah.
city where I never was really. It's like when you come from Eastern Europe, like me, Western Europe for us is like this paradise. It's like this magical land where everything is perfect, everything is fine. And I knew that his father lived there for years, so I thought, I genuinely, I was very shy. He knew that. He knew I was a very shy girl, a very weak girl. I'm not that today, but I was back then. And he knew that how much I depended on my truth. He knew if I said something to my mom, to my brother, to anyone, that was so important to me. And he also knew to manipulate me with money. He was like, "Oh, my poor Rose. Like, I know you never had a father, and you always wanted more, and you always wanted to travel, and you never got that. I'm gonna take care of you. You know, I'm not gonna allow anything to happen to you. All those basic things which lots of pimps use." And
So like
when
the love bombing type stuff.
exactly, and
Yeah.
they don't go, and that's like the funniest part. They don't go after girls who have a stable life. They don't go after girls who have a father, who have a stable figure in their home or money. And I have to add that I read many of the chat logs from the Tate in the evidence, and it's perfect. I'm gonna say yes, Yasmina. They were looking especially for those girls who can they isolate from their families, who don't have, they were kind of insecure. That's very important to add. They're insecure. They need validation. They need love, even from them, even when it hurt them. So they have this radar where they look specifically for those girls, and we are like bank machines for them.
Yeah, I recall I'm not sure if you've seen this clip with Tristan, and he's with a bunch of the other War Room guys, Justin Wallace, Sterling Cooper, and
Oh.
he's talking about how just openly talking about how it's the clip I believe where he says that he's probably
Mm,
exaggerating, but recruited the most women into the adult entertainment industry.
mm.
But he goes on to talk about how hard it is to recruit women from well-off
Yeah,
families and how
and
easy it is to. So he talks about this openly.
First, we're going to get to the real entertainment value. So, this is a good question. Tips on raising daughters so they don't end up 304s, prostitutes, on the pole, OnlyFans, etc. Most men I know don't have daughters for these reasons. I'll chime in very quickly and I'll say, one, I have recruited, I think, although you've worked with a lot, more girls into, I guess, the adult entertainment industry than anyone else. I really have. And the one type of girl I couldn't recruit were girls with rich parents. Oh, do that for money. I don't need money. My family's rich. So when I see these broke boys on Twitter and on Instagram be like, oh, my daughter, I'm raising her right, and she's like 9 years old, but he like works some crappy job. He's a wagey. I'm like, she's going to get that Louis Vuitton purse one way or another. So you might want to level up your game and buy it for her, my G.
The temptation is certainly there if they're not completely and utterly financially independent or financially secure. If they're completely financially secure, it's more difficult to try and move them into those kind of industries.
yeah, and you know what I read? I like read the other day, or that Crayon posted that the judge accepted all those videos to be included in the evidence. Talk shit, and that's what gets to you. And it's actually really true. And they know that. The Jade Bros knew that exactly. I mean, they grew up in Luton. I'm not gonna say that they are the most intelligent people out there, but they are street smart. They know how to look for these girls. They know how to, especially those who have troubles at home. That's the most important part, who come from broken homes, who are insecure, who need help, who need validation, who never had love from true love. And that's like, it's really crazy how all of that lines up with each and every pimp. And then you can say whatever you want about the Tate brothers, especially Tristan, but he is charismatic when you first talk to him. I mean, he does look good. So to a naked eye who doesn't know him exactly, when you see first his profile, well, he looks handsome. We should admit that. And then he does know what to talk about with you. So girls are very vulnerable. So I'm not surprised that he recruited many girls.
Yeah. And I meant to mention this in the introduction, but it slipped my
Yes.
mind. But I'll say now that Rose was after her experience with her pimp, pimp,
Mm-hmm.
and her experience with what she went through, was approached by Tristan Tate, which we'll get
Yes.
into later. So
Yes. We
I
can
guess
get
since
into
we'll tell the
it.
story chronologically, we're going to give that a bit of a teaser now. That is quite interesting. Now we're getting into Sweden and
Switzerland.
sorry, Switzerland. I'm sorry,
Switzerland.
getting to Switzerland and yeah, it sounded like you were convinced to be optimistic, I guess, about that. So yeah, tell me about how that played out arriving there and what took place there.
I mean, as you can see my comic, which you can share on the screen. It wasn't that I was like, oh my God, the new adventure. It was more like what am I even doing, with my life? I just went with the flow. At that point, I gave up on many things in my life. I wanted to be a doctor, but I couldn't be because I was dropped out of school, because I couldn't go to a doctor and because I was bullied. I had to do a job for months where I had to pleasure men, old men, young men, every kind of man, even if I didn't want to for money. So I went through that much from a very young age. And at that point, when I was sitting in that train from Budapest to Zurich, I was like, you know what, Rose, just 1 week, you don't know. I didn't even know what's going to happen to me in my future. I mean, like in next couple months, I was like, maybe this will be something. Because at that point, I reduced myself a lot. I didn't think of myself as a person who is worthy of a future to be a doctor, to have an everyday life like all of the girls from my class. I thought, oh my God, I'm just a prostitute. I sucked dick so many times. I pleasured men so many times. I mean, I guess that's what my future is, right? And I think that's what many of these girls have there in their mind. That's why they don't change. And when I came to Zurich, it was cold, cold November. Actually, it's the 6th year anniversary to it. And my picked me out with his help, and he brought me to Langstrasse, which is the red light district of Zurich. As you can imagine, you can see there everywhere drug dealers. It's nasty, it's dirty, prostitutes from all around the world. Everything. Like, just imagine the dirtiest place you can ever see. And I was already very, very shocked. I was like, Mark, what is going on? I was like, Mark, you promised me to bring me to a clean place that had my room and etc. etc. And he brought me to this very disgusting, dirty room, like a little small apartment above a kiosk. And on that kiosk were, I wouldn't necessarily call them the mafia, but lots of Albanians, lots of these people who watched the girls. And I started revolting. I was like, Mark, what the hell is going on here? I said, I want to go home. And they were like, calm down. Why are you being so crazy? Come, we just kind of staying over here. And I just knew I just didn't like it. What can I do? I mean, at that point, I didn't even have money to return home. I didn't even have that. And I remember looking through my bag. I wanted to look at my wallet, and I was like, my ID card is missing and my passport. I was like, where is my ID and passport? And they were like, yeah, we're just gonna keep it safe for you, because customers can lose it, etc. And I told him, Mark, you do know that I never slept with a man for money. So I did give oral pleasure to a man, but I was like, I'm not gonna, what the hell is going on? And it was just, he said, like, go down tonight. It was Friday night. And Evelyn was like his girlfriend. And that woman was so in love with him. And that is also very, very weird culture from Hungary and also from Romania. That there are many of these women who willingly work for their men, who are their pimps. But in their eyes, it's a love story. So basically, these women from Hungary, and mostly gypsy women, and from Romania, they come to Switzerland willingly for 2 or 3 weeks. They make the most money they can, and then they go home to their man, and then he's like, I'm so proud of you. I could have never understood that culture, but it's very, very true. And Mark forced me, he said, no, go on the street. I just gonna say, just go on the street. So it was Friday night, Langstrasse, late November. You see everything on there. You see desperate men in their 30s, 20s, 40s, 50s, 60s, doesn't matter. Just approaching women and just saying 20, 30, 40, 50 francs. And I was just shocked. And then there's the madams. And I wanted to bring that up because, of course, we know about Georgina and what's the other's name? Alexandra?
Luana.
Luana. I don't know why
Yeah.
I said Alexandra. But in some aspects, they're even worse than the pimps. Because the pimps look especially for those women who are cruel as them. And in one way, you can always say, these women are really more cruel because how can you do that to a fellow woman? I saw them beating women, spitting on them, pulling their hair, kicking them. And it's just the first night I was like, Evelyn, I want to go home. I want to go home. And I went up and they said, now this is your home. This is your home. And they said, we are going to tell everything to your brother and your mother in the hometown. We know where your brother lives. We can beat him up if you say anything and if you go home. And till this day, I have no idea where my passport or my identification card even disappeared, where they put it. So I was basically kind of legally there. And they told me, look at the police outside. So they lied to me. They said, if they find you and they arrest you, if you say something, you're going to go to jail. So they put it already in my head, inside my head, that if I try to do anything, they're going to isolate me from my family. They're going to tell my family. And that's exactly the same thing, which I read, which Andrew Tate did to Yasmina, that he lied, that he said that Yasmina was working in a sex club and stuff like that. That's like the 101 pimp guide, I would say. It was and at that moment, I was like, what can I even do? Oh my God. And like Langshas is like the ghetto. And that night, I had to make my first money because they say if you don't make at least 200 francs, this and that, we're gonna beat you and everything. And I was desperately looking maybe as someone who looks decent enough to sleep with. As I said, I never had intercourse for money before in my life, only oral sex. And I brought up this to me. He was from ex-Yugoslavia, so he spoke my language. And I thought maybe he's going to be compassionate, maybe he's going to be understanding, or maybe he's going to listen to me. No. While he raped me, he laughed the whole time because I was crying. And he just threw 60 francs at me, which I had to give to my pimp. Basically, that was my first night there.
So you said he was laughing the whole time?
Laughing. The more I was crying, the more he was laughing. The more I was begging, please, like, help me, the more he enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's twisted. Jeez.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Wow. And so after the first night, did you like in your head feel like that was going to be a one-off, that you'd do that for money, or were you kind of starting to sense that this was going to be what your pimp was going to have, expecting you to do?
I mean, I didn't have any choice. I was, and you can easily Google Longshore, say it's the red light district. I didn't have any money. They took my ID, they took my papers. I had nothing there though. I was forced. They told me if I don't make money, and they did beat me up a lot. They didn't beat my face because they said that's the money maker. But they did threaten me, and they knew my biggest Achilles heel was my family. And they said, we know where your brother lives. We know when he goes to his Kung Fu trainings. We know when he goes to work. And we can beat him up anytime if you disobey. Because I did try to disobey. I tried to first, and that's what went away in couple of weeks. Because in the beginning, I was fighting. I was like, I don't want this. I was like, I tried to escape. I tried to fight with them. And then the more I tried to fight back, the more they punished me. And then I still had maybe a hope couple days after that maybe somehow I can escape this, maybe I can earn some money, but that died away very, very quickly. I think reality crashed for me on that street. Everything that was joyous, everything that was innocent in my life, still, it all went away. I was just, and I remember I didn't speak German. Now I speak very good German, but then I didn't speak German at all. And I was in that bar and there was he kind of looked like a nice man. Maybe he was 40, 50. And I was saying him maybe something in English, but I remember till this day in German, he told me, your eyes, you don't belong here. You don't. And I remember him. And I just cried and I brought him up, but he felt sorry for me. He was like, you know what, I'm just going to give you the money because I was crying. And then he left. And that's like the first person who saw, hey, this girl needs help, but what can he even do with me? He's an average worker. I don't speak German. He doesn't speak English. And then the pimp told me how, where were you for 20 minutes? Where were you? He said, you need to go up and down, just bring up and down every customer you see. And just like that. And then they controlled it. They were outside the door, but I had to bring the customer. They took all the money I had to give them immediately. And then there was my madame. I don't even remember her name. She was a Hungarian Roma, maybe, but she was very beautiful. But I had to pay her like additional 50 francs per day because of protection. And then when I was beat up on the street by other women, by other prostitutes, and it's just not sound egoistic, but I was the most desirable girl there. They just beat me up because they just didn't like me. And I told her, where's my protection? What am I even paying you for? For nothing. You don't have no compassion, nothing. So, and that was the saddest part, that for the first couple of days, first 2 weeks, I tried to fight. I tried to explain it to them what they're doing wrong. I tried to find compassion. I tried to find any kind of humanity I could there. I told them, this is what you're doing to me. I tried, and then I gave up completely because I became the part of that world.
Now, I kind of want to put a pin in this right now and just quickly talk about or point out the confusions with the Loverboy method that we spoke about. So uh, we hear Tates and Myron and these people say, and even Tates, idiot lawyer, say things like,
Oh, that
um,
method.
"Oh yeah,
Oh my God.
we could go on about him for a while, but
Of course, of course.
but we hear them say things like, oh, it's just, heard Tate say, it's just, oh, they're accusing me of being nice, or it's just
Mm.
being nice to co-workers. And
if you don't mind me asking, what did they try to pin you for?
They accuse me of human trafficking. They accuse me of using the Loverboy method, which is convincing girls by being nice to do a job to take the money from the girls. Because I told two of my friends who are girls how to get big on TikTok.
That's why all of this happened to you?
Yeah.
so they just focus on the recruitment via romance and things like that. Not realizing that all these other elements of trafficking that you've mentioned is required still for the Loverboy method.
Of
It's
course.
human trafficking, recruiting via the Loverboy method, and a lot of the
Yes.
things you mentioned, we've seen. We can really say as facts that the Tates have done with the text
Mhm.
messages pulled from their devices and the conversations we've seen. Violence, threats of violence. We
Mhm.
can say that as fact for as far as Tristan instructing Georgiana to be
Yes, yes.
one of the victims. Um, you mentioned Andrew talking about Yasmina with isolation, and he was bragging in the war room group chats
Oh,
about
I
doing that.
saw that. I saw.
So I just thought this is a good time to point out, and maybe you can add a bit to this of how very clearly what you're describing and the parallels with the Tate case, how this is not just someone, um, how to put it, being nice and being romantic and taking someone somewhere, and then we're calling that human trafficking.
No, of course not. That's what they love to manipulate because they know most of the people are uneducated about human trafficking. They just want to say, "Oh, and that's what happened to me after I reported my pimp. And when it all came out in my home city, they were like, "But she asked for it. She came out with him willingly." So it took a lot of fight, took a lot of courage, but that's true. They're just gonna say, "Oh my God, she dressed sexy. Do you see how sexy she dressed? She asked for it. I just wanted to be nice to her. I just wanted to help her." That's the textbook, what they do. And it's just really heartbreaking. That's why most girls don't even go to the police because all they see is negativity, the backlash, the bullying, and they just don't have the courage to even go. Or some are even so brainwashed and manipulated at that point that they love their pimp, just like the Yasmina and the other girls.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like it feels like they, or maybe as a coping mechanism, like convince themselves that they love him. Do you think
It could
that's
be.
kind of what's happening?
It could be very much. So I was five
Mm.
months in Langstrasse, and as I said, I was there for the first 2 weeks. I was fighting with tooth and nail. I was crying. I was fighting with the madame because I was trying to reach every bit of humanity from these people which I could. I was there after 2 months. I wasn't like them, nothing at all. But I accepted my reality. Got used to it. I got from all of that, from the rape, from the abuse, from the hot and cold showers, which I'm sure the Tay brothers use as well. I kind of thought of myself as this prostitute. I actually thought there's nothing worth more of saving. I wasn't fighting anymore like I did in the first 2 weeks. The only thing I saw, I was used, I was raped, I was everything. I don't deserve it. I don't use. Who am I to judge my pimp? Who am I to report him? And that was only 5 months. Imagine what those girls went through years. I'm sure for them, also in the beginning, maybe it was hard. Maybe they were also confused. They wanted to go home. And then you get Andrea and Tristan. I'm sure they use the hot and cold method. Just like in toxic relationships, first they give you so much love, so much attention, so much affection, and then they pull away. And then it's almost like you're a junkie. Where is it? Where is it? Where's my validation? And then you crave it more. And then they give you a little bit more. And then they pull back again. Give you and pull back again. That's the one way they bind these girls to them. And in the end, they don't have the family. They are already on OnlyFans, so most people reject them. And the only place they have is the Tate brothers. And it's full circle. It's very dangerous. And for 5 months, I wouldn't say I was in love with my pimp, but I felt sorry for him when I reported him. That's how much damage I went through. And it took, I would say, years, 1, 2 years to fully get out of it.
Wow, okay. Now I'm trying to be mindful of not trying to rush you through parts of the story if there's more to talk about. So we were talking about those initial weeks. Is there anything more that you wanted to cover going on from that part of the story?
So in the
Yeah.
first weeks, so December, I was still fighting. I still had hope I can get out of here, but then reality crashed. After I was raped every day, I started to use drugs. I started to use alcohol, which I hated before. It just, I think at that point, and there was also an incident when I had to bring up 2 men because my pimp told me I need to make, I think, 200 in 1 hour, which is kind of impossible. It was very cold. And I brought up these 2 men, very dirty, very, very. But I was like, you know what? I need to make this money or else my pimp is gonna beat me up. And so this is a little bit graphic. I'm gonna try to keep it as PG-13 as possible. One put in my mouth, the other in my private part, and they both started to rape me at the same time. And as much as I needed that money, I just couldn't do it. I was saying maybe after 3, 4 minutes, I just jumped up. I started screaming at them. I said, get out. And it was like, they were like, what the fuck? We're gonna give you. I just said, I don't care. Just get the fuck out. And of course, the pimp was in the kitchen, and I thought the pimp is gonna maybe like beat them up or like do something. And he just started laughing at me. I was crying there, I was broken. He just started laughing at me, and he said, "Oh my God, this is what you deserve, you stupid this and that, you stupid bitch. What were you even thinking?" And I was like, "I did this for you." And ever since that night, I remember many people told me I was never the same after that. I think that legitimately broke me. And after that, it might have been the middle of December. After that, I kind of gave up. I just didn't care anymore what was going to happen to me. I didn't have contact with my mom for weeks. I generally just didn't care what's going to happen to me at that point. I was completely broken. And I worked there on the street for until like the 9th, 8th of May. And my birthday was also on the street, actually. Mm. No one remembered it. There was actually a client, an Italian client, who bought me like a little necklace. It was actually very nice, which is kind of weird to say because even in those horrible places, you could still find some kindness. But other than that, I met people who beat me up. I was in lots of dangers. I was one time stranded in middle of Zurich in nowhere. I was beaten. I saw a girl almost being choked in front of me. I got pregnant and I didn't even know I was pregnant. I just everything. I just completely gave up on my life at that point. I didn't care. I was totally broken. It broke me, and it only took 5 months. It took me 5 years now to repair myself back. I didn't think I deserve a future. I didn't think I deserve forgiveness. I didn't think I deserve anything. I just gave up completely. I was using drugs to forget. I was using alcohol to not feel when had to sleep with a client. And then my uncle from Canada, who is also in the comic, and he is my superhero. He is. He came to my mom, and my mom, she said, I don't know where's. We get cryptic messages, but that's not her. And maybe I got a little courage. Maybe because my uncle wrote me. Maybe because I was too ashamed to talk with my mom. And I took a client's phone and I just wrote the address where I was in Langstrasse. And my uncle immediately realized. He knew what that was. And here's the funniest part. My pimp Mark thought I don't have a stable family. I don't have money. No one's going to look for me. But I do have a family which loved me. And my uncle took immediately the plane from Canada. He landed in Hungary, met my mother. Then he went to the Bosnian police because I'm a Bosnian citizen. And he told them, my niece, she's being trafficked in Switzerland. We need to help her. Then the Bosnian police called the Swiss police to tell them one of our citizens is there trafficked. And they knew. And then my uncle took the car and he drove all the way to Zurich from Bosnia. And they knew they had to approach me very, very differently because at that point I wasn't the same Rose anymore. I was just a shell of a person who I once was. I was broken. I didn't have any respect for myself. I just didn't. And my uncle came for me. I think it was the 9th of May, 2019. And he was just like, oh, Rose, we're just gonna go to. I was like, yes, uncle. I started to laugh. I was like, yeah, uncle. I was just like with friends. I mean, I never admitted I was a prostitute. And he brought me immediately to the police. And I was like, what is going on? I was like, what is this? I'm not in danger. I'm okay. I mean, that's what 5 months of brainwashing and trauma does to you. I was like, I don't need help. Like, what is going on? Why? And then my uncle took me to a safe house, and he always told me how lucky I am because Switzerland is one of the only countries in Europe which has an organization to help women who are trafficked like me. It's called FIT. And he told me, like, Rose, this is the best place now for you. Stay here. If you want to report to the police, report. And this is the best. And I got offered an accommodation, like in a safe house. And that was the first time in months that I saw green. Because Langstrasse, it's cold, it's gray, it's dirty. And they brought me to this beautiful little house, and it had green, like a garden. As you can see, I was shocked, and I was like, okay, uncle, I'm gonna stay. But keep in mind, I had so much trauma. I was pregnant. I didn't even know I was pregnant. And of course, and in Switzerland, it goes like this. You can either choose to stay and report everything to the police, go through the process, go through everything, or go home to your homeland and take some money with you. 95% of the girls who come here, they just go home. They take some money home. Why? They're afraid of their pimps. Two, they're afraid to speak out because we see what happens to women who actually speak out. 3, lover boy method. Most girls, the same way I did, we only think that we have a chance in court if you're kidnapped or starved or chained up. I think the only reason why I accepted to stay and to report because I was so out of my mind at that point that I was just accepting what's going to happen in my life. Then I also had to have the abortion, which took a huge toll on me. I had to completely adjust to Switzerland. I had to go to the police and report my pimp. Imagine my fear, the man who lives in the same city as my brother and my mother, who knows all of my friends, who knows everyone. I'm reporting him. I'm throwing away everything. And one thing which also my pimp tried to point out, that I wanted money. That's why I reported him, which is the biggest lie ever. When you come to the social system in Switzerland, you don't get fast money. All you get is police. All you get is paperwork, prosecution office, very little money, a lot of controlling, lots and lots of controlling. You don't have the same life anymore. But what I did, I took the leap of faith. It took me lots and lots of, actually 5 years to recover. I went through very bad alcoholic cycles where I used to drink every single day just to forget everything because I had so much trauma and flashbacks. I used to get such a high blood pressure because I would just stress out about my pimp. I would actually, in the first months, feel sorry for him. That's how much brainwashed I was. I felt sorry for him, for the man who did that to me. I used to be in a mental hospital because I just couldn't deal with it. But then with time, I started to learn German. I went to school with low immigrants from all around the world. I learned German. I lived in a very small little apartment with everyone else, and I built myself up. Now I go to university. I have my own apartment. I have a fiance. I don't have Instagram. I do have an old one, but I don't post anymore because I don't need validation. And after so many years, I finally realized what happened to me, that I was human trafficked with the lover boy method. And my greatest joy was when last year I attended court. And he came out, he was crying, like, like, I don't want to leave Switzerland. She asked for this. Like, I just helped her. She's just manipulating. And actually, I didn't even have to attend that court case at all. I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I appeared and I told him, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And that's the power I felt. Once I was crying because I had to report him. Now, for myself, I said, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And now the first time, because yes, in 2018, I was working in Vienna, I had so much money, but I was unhappy. Now I don't feel like a prostitute anymore. I don't put myself on that level. I respect myself. I love myself. I forgive myself as well for whatever happened. And I remember I used to wash myself for so many times in the shower just to take off the dirt, take off the shame from myself, because I always thought I will always be a prostitute. I will always be someone who was used, who was raped, who was in 3 sons, 4 sons, 5 sons. But now I have a wonderful life for myself. I go to university. I have friends. I have a wonderful fiance who actually knows about my secret, because that's another thing. I was so afraid. How can I approach with a man who I love and tell him my truth without him being disgusted? And I think I know many women feel that way, because I want to be honest with my partner. It was a little bit doozy, shocking, but he accepted it the next day. Was immediately because he loved me who I was, about my story, about my character, not the little prostitute on the street corner. He loved me who I was, and he was so proud of me when I went to the court. He was so proud of me when I reported to the police. And he's a wonderful man, and he's something the Tate brothers aspire to be. He's handsome. He's rich, because I know that matters to Tate bros. He's very educated. He's handsome, and he's completely nice and compassionate. And If I did it, I know many other girls just in my situation can do that. We don't have to be defined a prostitute, a whore, uh, all those what Myron says, what Tristan, what Tate, what the pimps, we can become someone. And as I said, when I looked him in the eyes and I told him, I'm not afraid of you anymore, he had nothing to say. He looked down, and that was my final word. And so that's my story about my trafficking.
Wow. Definitely the happy ending, I guess, I don't know, is really inspiring. Like for anyone listening that is trying to work through any sort of trauma, I think they can take a lot away from that. But firstly, your uncle stepping in is really amazing.
Yeah,
That yeah, sometimes it just takes one person showing a bit of care, doesn't it?
was.
Yeah,
And
wow.
because that was the funniest part. My March thought that I have no one, that no one's gonna look for me, no one's gonna care about me. And even my mom said he has no idea because I think for 1.5 years he was just like prancing around Hungary and Switzerland. He had no idea that I was by the police. He had no idea that I was in the justice system. He was just living his best life. And though he was arrested, he didn't even know about it, what was happening. And of course, I had to add, which I forgot when he was arrested. It was 2021 April. I got the biggest backlash from my city because my nudes, which he took, were shared all around the city. It was posted on Facebook, and literally the whole city was calling me names or saying all kinds of things about me. And I remember my mom calling me, and at that point, I was so, so stressed. I was like, Mom, I don't want to hear it. Just don't tell me. But later I looked. Basically, just what happened to the two girls who are the victims of Tristan and Andrew. I remember it was the last year, probably last year in August, September, when they came forward, and the henchman of the Tate, Suleiman, he posted their names, he posted their faces, he posted their everything, and he told them, look at these, like how do you get trafficked, and then you go this and there. These are girls are not trafficked, and people call them ugly. People call them there. You know what I'm saying? Kudos to those two girls. Kudos to them. I read all the files because of one of the U.S. victims. Her family called the police on them, and thank God they did. And I also remember how the U.S. victim was like, "Mom, why'd you do that?" Don't, because that's the initial thought, like, don't do it. Thank God they did. Thank God their family called the police on them, and those two girls escaped because justice was served. And I was so proud of them. But what really hurt my soul when the Tate fanboys shared pictures of those two girls, called them ugly, and also the Yasmina and everyone. Even though Yasmina is considered, the way I said, a victim, and in my eyes, she's a victim. She also speaks bad about those girls. What I say, good for them. I'm so, so proud of them. I wish I could have reached out to them any way I could and tell them that they're doing amazing and they are gonna prevail. And I know how hard it is because I went through the same thing, the attack. It's the most vicious thing. Imagine I was recovering already from a trauma from alcoholic, and then I was also punched in the gut. That people were sharing photos from me, everything in my home city. It was very, very hard to recover. So I'm very proud of them wherever they are.
Yeah, and it's obviously they're not able to speak out. They've had so much threats and all these things, and I definitely hope they know how many people support them. And we've seen the American victim. We know just from the text messages that she was thinking about how to get the other girl out and how to help other people in
Mm.
that situation, which is
I
pretty
actually,
incredible.
yes, I actually see her in me when I was first week there because I also tried to escape. I was telling everyone, hey, these girls, and all the girls around me were like, what's your issue? You're making these problems for us. Like, he's so nice to us. And I was the one like, hey, this something's wrong in here. And I also read through the WhatsApp messages. She could immediately, and really, she told her family, also the other girl from Moldova. And I'm so happy that they got out before anything worse could have happened. And they started the cycle. They did. And sooner or later, what did the Tate brothers saying that it's not gonna, that all the women are gonna be stupid and sheep? It's gonna catch up to you. They flew too close to the sun, like Icarus.
Well, especially the way they spoke, especially Andrew, well, both of them really spoke about it so publicly online. They definitely thought they were untouchable in some weird way. Now I want to finish up by one talking about how you felt like talking to the media about your story and your motivation behind that, and then touched on how Tristan reached out to you and how that
Yes.
played out. But is there anything else before we get into that you want to cover that you haven't yet? So I'd make sure you didn't miss anything you want to say.
Yes. Well, the media, I was started off by I do have social media. I have a social media, a very old Instagram account, which the last time I posted before I was trafficked, because I value privacy now. I have been very private in the past couple of years, since the trafficking. And in 2022, I did have a Tinder account, and I'm located in Switzerland, Zurich. And I was just scrolling, and I matched with Tristan. And it wasn't his real name there, but it was him. He was verified, and it was him.
Did you know who Tristan was? It was 2022, so maybe
Yeah,
famous, but not everyone knew who they were then. Did you know who they
actually,
were?
so they were blowing up at that time. It was more, I was on TikTok. I saw most, I don't know if it's gonna hurt Tristan because he does have the second brother syndrome, but I mostly saw Andrew. Like, he was very controversial. He made lots of waves. The way I saw him, Andrew and Tristan, I only saw him more of them talking about masculinity, about sports. And I have to admit that in the last couple of years, young men didn't have a role figure, like a role model in their lives. And then boom comes Andrew and sweeps them all up, all these young men, teenager men who need a figure for them, to lead, to guide them. And Andrew came and swept them up. And then I saw Tristan, and yeah, I always thought of him maybe like the more gentle brother. I had no idea, nothing about trafficking. I know nothing about that. I didn't know too much about him, so I saw him on Tinder, and I think it was the beginning of August. And I matched with him. He told me along the lines that, oh, like, because I had in my bio like that I love Lord of the Rings movies, and he was like, I never watched Lord of the Rings movies, but I might should. And he told me we are so connected. He said we have so many similarities. I asked him why, because he said I also like to be alone. Because I also had in my bio that I'm more of an introvert person. And then he gave me his number, and we started to talk on WhatsApp. And as I sent you a voice message from him.
I'm very happy to hear that. I really try to preach a positive spin on modern day masculinity and try to teach young men a healthy and happy way to live. I believe that male suicide and male depression are big problems. And, when I preach, a way of life that could make young men more happy, make them more wealthy, then people call me a misogynist and feminists attack me. And I don't really understand why. I show respect to everybody.
As I said, I didn't necessarily feel connected to him. Something was fishy. Maybe I didn't know really, but that's why I told my brother, hey, Tristan, you have been following him for years because of Kickbox. And so he immediately told me, hey, yeah, I like his Kickbox, but just don't. He said, you're going to end up like baby mama, he's going to cheat on you. And that was before we even know about human trafficking. And when the human trafficking came out that December, when they were arrested, And then when I read the indictment, when the way he talked with Georgina and Luana, when he said, slave those bitches, and the way he called all those women, I just felt like another cold old memory, which I saw so many years ago on those streets. And that's why I also actually feel sorry for Tristan and Drew, because they're a shell of a person. They don't have genuine connection. They don't have genuine love. All the connection and love they have was paid for or coerced or manipulated with their baby mamas, with Georgina. They don't actually have genuine love. And as maybe I don't actually feel bad for them in that way because they did do it themselves. But it's just a very sad way to live. And the way I see the clips now from Tristan, from the court, he's actually more scared than Andrew. Andrew is kind of more focused and keeps the lie up. But then you can see the videos where Tristan is genuinely panicking. You can see it in his eyes. The eyes never lie.
Yeah, he doesn't quite have the poker face that Andrew does.
Yes.
Andrew comes out like he's a angry man on a mission, and Tristan's a deer in the headlights. It's quite the contrast. So, okay, so your brother said, "Oh, stay away from these guys,"
Yes, and at
before
that point,
even knowing about the trafficking allegations.
I mean, at that point, the human trafficking allegations weren't even out that much. It was more that they were like playboys. And my brother, the only reason why he liked them was because he plays kickbox. And I told him, bro, like you saw the messages between me and my brother. And then I talked with him. He said, no, he's either gonna get you pregnant and leave you, or he said he fucks many girls. No, just don't go. It's not good for you. No, no. And I didn't even plan to go, but even my brother, who didn't even know about their human trafficking allegations, and no one did, he still said no. He's just like, don't get involved in it.
Yeah, that's a crazy twist, really, that you went through your story and then had that experience with
Oh my
someone
God.
involved in the most notorious trafficking case since Epstein, I guess.
Yes, can I tell a joke? Because they say when
Please.
you're healing from something, you can joke about, like, my fiance, he knows what happened to me. And then when I told him about Tristan, like I was talking with Tristan, and he was like, Rose, how the fuck that it happens to you 2 times that you're almost trafficked? It's good to laugh, really.
I mean, what can you do apart from laugh?
No,
I mean,
no, it was
obviously in that situation, nothing bad happened to you. I
yeah,
mean,
nothing. I think it was more that I was a very beautiful young woman. As you can see, also my pictures you can share as well. And it's easy to access. I was very young, so my Tinder profile I had 22, which means I'm sure the Tristan put, because in Tinder you can put the age preference. I'm sure he put it between 18 and 23, so it was easy to find me. But yeah, it was more from my fiance. It was like Rose, but no, he wasn't like angry. Just like we talked it through, and everything's okay. He's a very compassionate man, but it was just a joke. Like, how come almost happens to you 2 times? It was just very funny.
wow. And so that was a bit of a crazy, really. Yeah. So now you've which is really brave and selfless in a way, how you've started speaking to the media now. So you've done that article, the comic book, and the interview for
Yes.
the television network. So was that something that you thought about? Did they come to you and you thought, you know what, this is a good idea? How'd that kind of come about?
Well, no, actually, last year when I won my court case, I have to say I felt very empty because that was the thing I wanted the most in my life. I wanted it for 5 years. I thought if when I win the court case, it's gonna change something inside of me. And when I did win it, I felt nothing. I thought I'm gonna jump out of my skin. I thought I'm gonna, I don't know, just like feel like a new person. And it didn't do nothing. And I was like, what did even I do? In my mind, I had these thoughts. Maybe I lost 5 years. I didn't see my family in 5 years. For what? And then I had like a flatmate. And she's somewhat of a journalist. She's like an aspiring journalist. And I never told too many people about my story. So my fiance knows my family. Some of my teachers, they had to know. My lawyer, police, and maybe one or two of my friends. And then I confided in her, and she was like, "Hey, Rose, if you really, if you want to share your story, we can do that. We can, because she works for a magazine." In my mind, it was never about fame. It was never about publicity or for me to get money or to get famous, nothing like that. It's just to get the story out and just to think, because in my mind, in my depressive mind, I thought I lost 5 years of my life. I lost everything. I lost mental health, rate. I was ridiculed. I was bullied. What can I do now with this? And I took this chance. I took my story and turned it into something very positive and transformative. We shared my comic book. It came out in October and it made waves around Switzerland. I also actually sent you a couple of reactions from it. There was a mother who wrote to my publicist. She said she had no idea something like this is happening. She said her daughter was only living a couple minutes from Langstrasse, going to university, and she has no idea. People, because on the internet, people love to hate. People just love to, hate on anything. And this article was very, very positive. People were just genuinely shocked that someone will come forward with this. And the funniest part was actually when it came out, my article, I was walking around the city, around the kiosks, and people were buying it. And I was like, oh my God. And they were like so shocked. They were like, who is this girl? And I was like joking, right? Who is this girl? It was just so liberating. I didn't need to be famous. I didn't need to know it was me. It just made me happy that I made a change. I changed their opinions. I made awareness in these people's lives. And that's what inspired this interview by SRF, because my article made such huge waves around the country that they do the interview. As I said, I was very happy. I showed my old photos, which you can also share. And now I will have, because Switzerland is like a beehive for human trafficking. We have this red light district where all of that happens. You don't even know. It doesn't even scratch the surface of what is happening. And it needs to be dealt with. And we were specifically talking about the lover boy method, which is so overlooked and is so ignored because just like Tate and Myron, they can always say, oh, well, she wasn't kidnapped or she wasn't chained to the wall. But international law says otherwise. So now, again, it's very successful. I do have some deals. There are deals maybe for a book or movie or documentary, which I still need time because I do have to finish my studies. I'm my last year of psychology and have to get married. But I'm very open to continue with this project and just make a change in the world. And because I always said I loved, Miss Universe pageant. I love Miss Universe. And each time, every representative of each country has to say, like, what do they want to change around the world? And most of the time they say poverty, mental health, or which is valid. I'm not saying it's not, but no one ever said human trafficking. No one ever. And because it's $1 billion industry and still no one wants to talk about it because it's such a taboo topic. Because us girls were looked at as garbage, we're looked as used merchandise. And that's not true. And that's my mission right now, just to make a change, really. Maybe also this interview is like the next step for it. And maybe in the next one, I will also show my face very, very slowly and gradually because I do want to show it with time. And that's really my goal. It's not the money, it's not the fame. but to do something with my story and to show other girls, hey, there's hope. Because I wish when I was in the middle of that cold December morning, when I was in miniskirt, when I was crying, that someone told me, hey, you can come to the police. They can protect you, and you do have a chance. You do have a chance for winning. I wish that happened, but it didn't. But maybe now I can also help other women as well. Because my article, the reason why this whole segment came out in SRF was because of my article.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I feel like kind of just with my experience talking about the Tate case and the responses that I get from it, and then kind of hearing your story, I feel like there's like a few different groups of people that need to hear this and take different things away from it. There's the lads and young men and boys who, like we've mentioned, being confused by people that are deliberately trying to muddy the waters about trafficking and the lover boy method, and it's just someone being nice. And what about this is a big one. I'd be curious actually to hear your response to this, because knowing what the lover boy method really is, it's completely absurd. But I'm getting a lot. What about the lover girl method? Girls lie to men all the
What?
time.
I'm so sorry. Honestly, I have to laugh. Because how in the world can you compare a woman lying to someone being human trafficking? And I'm not saying here that lying is good or anything like that. I think it's like an overcompensating. Because the men like the Tate brothers and Myron, they downplay, they say women cheat, women lie, women accuse men. And I'm not denying there are cases where women have been falsely accusing men. I'm not saying that. But they are taking this one singular case, and making it the whole reality. And they're saying, like, look at this man. If you speak, oh, I'm sorry, I have to laugh. Tate, what are you speaking out against? You're a low life pimp. Um, who's just like sharing the same things, and then every time something happens, you accuse Israel, you accuse the Matrix, you accuse this and that. Take some accountability. And the funniest part, I think it was Tristan who said, or Andrew, I don't know which one, but doesn't matter. I think maybe Tristan again. He said that one time there was this lonely man, and he was very lonely, and he just wanted some company through webcamming. And Tristan or Andrew, like this, told his girls to take every money from him, and they were proud of it. And now they're like a savior of men. Now they're the saviors. First of all, human trafficking can happen to men and women, to so many men, to young men in Bangladesh, in third world countries, in the Philippines. It's $1 billion industry. Because when the way I see it, the Tate brothers, they just don't take any accountability. They just say, oh, women lie, women cheat. When they say you're successful, they just want to take all your money. That's some bullshit. As a woman who went through a year's worth of court process, it's hard. You go through ridiculing, you go through very stressful situations. You have to go to prosecutor, you have to go to police. It's not something any woman enjoys. And most of the times when you even win, you don't get that much benefit. You don't get that much money. So, but they know that their audience are full of young men, or even men who are just very insecure, who never had maybe a relationship in their life, and they know that they can easily manipulate them. And many times I saw this lover girl method. Give me a break. Lover girl method is the same because men do the same. What they say, oh, a woman uses for your money. Okay, a man uses for sex. A woman lies to you. Okay, a man lies as well. You cannot compare that to the lover boy method, which is actually trafficking. And I'm not denying as I said, there are many women traffickers as well. The madams are very worse. But the propaganda and the lies, the Tate brothers, Pure, Round, and Myron, is much more damaging to these young men than any woman could ever be.
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that I want to get across to these young lads that are being misled about this, is that the lover boy method because they're being told that it's just the recruitment through romance, and we're calling that human trafficking. Um, it requires the rest of the elements of human trafficking, like with Tate's, for example, they're using violence, threats of violence, blackmail. A woman, they leaked her nudes all over Facebook, like you mentioned in your story,
Mhm.
and they told all the girls that's going to happen to you if you try to leave.
Mhm.
It's simply just human trafficking, or in some countries you call it sex trafficking,
Mhm.
by recruiting with romance. Um, and I also would like to co-sign, because a lot of my, just with the people I cover on my channel, if I look at my analytics, my audience
Mhm.
is mostly young men as well. And I want to just co-sign as well what you said about the fact that these guys and their messages is, they say we preach taking accountability, but when you really look at what they say, it's very much the opposite. They don't take accountability at all. Nothing can be the man in the situation's fault, to the point where, and I think you'll laugh at this, I find this funny. Um, I see Myron talk about this, especially
God.
um,
Mhm.
that there's an epidemic, okay, of men um, going on dates, and women are just going around and trying to get free
Oh
dinners
my
by
God.
taking them on date. And I'm just like, you
Man.
guys are just terrible dates. The women just went on a dinner with you and didn't want to see you again. And now they're saying, oh, they're scheming to get dinner from me. Now, that is
Mhm.
not taking accountability. If that's happening to me, if that's happening to
Oh
me, and
my,
I'm taking women on dates continuously and they only want to see me once and never
oh
again,
my,
that's a me problem. Or if that's happening to
exactly.
you, that's a you problem. Um,
Exactly. Read you said it so perfectly. Like they always complain that women. I cannot be honest. I never heard. I mean, at least from my friend circle, that women just as a hobby just go on dates and use men. I never heard about that. I swear to God, it's only Myron and these men preach who don't have any skills with a woman, who are just rude, misogynistic. And also, if I was a woman sitting next to Myron and he bought me food, and then he's preaching all this misogynistic stuff. And as I said, I don't take these words lightly, like misogynistic, but he is. I would do the same. I would just be nice, and then I would disappear because I don't want to deal with him again. And he's gonna say, "Oh, she just used me for my food." And as I said, my fiance, he's the most handsome, really businessman, handsome, straight, really man. And then he's so romantic and sweet with me. And for me, that's even more masculine. And I just want to be with him more. And the opposite, because I did have friends who told me, little shy friends, oh, but Andrew Tate said if you're romantic to a woman, she's gonna leave you. Bullshit. And that's what they're preaching. If you're rude to a man like Myron or Andrew, they're just gonna use you for a dinner, of course. And then you can go to the internet and complain and complain and complain. Just be a man, be nice. Uh, where did that go? How? I'm just wondering how, like, men like Andrew and Myron took over the internet. How did that even happen? I guess.
I don't know, but I think it's up to us men to push back and put out a better message, Duck, because there's going to be
Exactly.
a lot of there's going to be a lot of men not getting laid, listening to their advice. I'll put it that way. Okay, so, and I mentioned there was two groups. So there's the young men and the other group, and I don't want to, like, how to put it, put the responsibility on the women, or the especially underage young girls who may be vulnerable to such things. But you mentioned that when you went through this, you didn't know certain things were illegal. You didn't know what the Loverboy method was. So I was curious what kind of a message that
Mhm.
you thought would be good to get across to make young women and girls aware. Like I said, I don't want to
Mhm.
put the responsibility on them, but
Of course.
awareness obviously can help.
Yes. So I don't think this is practical, hurtful. I think it has to be discussed because I think, as I said, sex, prostitution, or even selling your body, even if it's for food, even if it fits for basic necessities, it's considered taboo. It's considered nasty. It's considered almost like you're a murderer. It almost feels like no one wants to do anything with you. And we're put that in that box already. And of course, we're not going to say to anyone, we're not going to say anything to our mom, to our teachers. My advice is, again, when I was 17 and I sent those photos, naked photos of myself, where you could have seen everything, to a grown-ass man who was maybe in his 40s, I had no idea that was illegal. I didn't know I was used. I just thought that there's some good man who want to help me. And I mean, I do believe that there should be more awareness, maybe in schools, in elementary schools, um, because again, it's such a taboo topic that no one wants to talk about it. It's almost like the plague. No one just wants to mention it. How girls are used, not just me, almost all girls around the world, and they don't even know. Maybe only 20, 30 years later they come out and they say, well, that happened to me as well. And I would also say, like, my brother and also my friends who I have, they were very shy, both of them, very handsome but very shy, and the first time they had girlfriends were in their 20s. And even though they were not Tate fanatics, even though they weren't like Tate fans, they were still like, oh, but if I'm romantic to a girl, then she's gonna think I'm a pussy. You know what I mean? That's how deep these roots go. That's how deep. And what I would say is, I wish I was open to my mom. I think the reason why I wasn't, because I was afraid of her. I was afraid of her reaction. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want to see her cry, but I know she would have done everything to protect me. Even if she didn't have anything, even if she didn't have money, she would have done everything. And I always say, if that happens, just go and talk to someone, to a trusted adult, even if a mom or an older sister, older sibling, a good teacher. You have to come out, you have to come forward. You don't have to carry this shame and burden alone, because the more you carry it, the more it builds up. The more lies you have to say, the more secrets you have to hold. And for such young a person, because it usually does start when you're 12, 13, 14, 15, you shouldn't carry that weight. And I wish what I could have done when I was 12, 13, when I was stuck on the streets, that I went to my mom. And I know, even though she didn't speak the language, she would have fought for me. She would have went there to that man and she would have cursed him out in Serbian, even if he doesn't understand it. But I'm saying, don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be ashamed, because when these men approach you, they know that they already put you in this bubble where you have to be ashamed. Where, oh, I saw you, I talked to you, you're already like a little plaything we can play. And that's the thing really I can suggest when you're so young. You cannot carry this burden alone. It wasn't meant to be like that. I remember when I was walking home, I was only 12 years old. I had my Barbie backpack. I was coming home from school. And then this man in his late 30s, 40s stops me and says, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen." And what can you do?
And that's, I guess, having learned a bit more about all this stuff with what I've been covering, it kind of concerns me a bit as well with social media and how this is now being used for this kind of stuff. And I feel like if it can become like common knowledge, a few things. One, it can become a common knowledge that someone approaching with romance, transitioning into suggesting sex work is a red flag for trafficking. If that's just like common knowledge, that could save like a lot of people getting hurt. And then just with the the OnlyFans management stuff. That's yeah, I'm worried about like a lot of these, especially some of these influencers that are doing it too.
Oh my
It's
God.
yeah.
No.
If there's going to be some Tate copycats and they think that's a good way to make some
Of
money, there's going to be some people getting in trouble.
course. And
Yeah.
it's just easy like that. Any girl around the world who doesn't have money, who doesn't have a father or any kind of stable household, and she has so many insecurities. She needs love, she needs validation, she needs just a little bit of money. These men can prey so easily on them, so easily, and that's why I was the most easiest target in my home city. As soon as you saw me young, very beautiful, very naive, very quiet, very shy, her mother alone in this country, they don't have any money, they don't have a father, nothing, no connections, ideal. And they just go after these girls as much as they can. And it's just it just really does make you sad. It truly does, because all these girls honestly ever wanted just to be accepted. They just wanted a community to belong to. They just wanted maybe some love. And as I said, most of the times these pimps use a hot and cold method. Like first they pull you in, that they're very romantic. They're like almost like a husband to you, and then they pull away, and then when they pull away you crave more, you want it more, like then you're like, where is it gone, where's your love gone, and then you chase them more, and then you become addicted to them. It's a very special method, and I cannot emphasize how it's important, not just for young women but also for young men to learn this, because the Tate brothers always say like how women are the vultures, how women are the ones who's gonna use them, how women are the ones who's gonna use and ruin their lives. I wish every time the Tate brothers posted anything on Twitter, that video of Tristan talking would show up, where Tristan says how he used lonely men out of all of their money, and where he said no mercy.
Yeah, and look, I mean, your story, it's like I mentioned, it's pretty inspiring. One for
Thank
someone
you.
that went through what you went through, but I think for someone that's working through trauma as well, when you've came out the other side, you've got a fiance, you're getting a psychology degree.
Mm.
Um, wow, just now that I think about that, the girl that you described and the state that you were in, if you could see yourself doing what you're doing now and getting that, going to university and learning languages and all these things, how would that feel?
Honestly, if you told me 6 years ago when I was trafficked, I would have said you're lying, because when I was trafficked, no, when I was saved actually, 5 months after I was trafficked, in my mind, I was like, okay, Rose, the only thing you're worth as is a prostitute. I wasn't even thinking how I'm gonna go home back to Vienna, because I thought I don't have any worth. I'm never gonna go to university. I'm never gonna belong to a normal friend group where it's not about sex, where it's not about drugs, when it's not about trafficking, where it's just a normal friend group. And genuinely took me years to and it lots of tears, lots of sweat. But right now I'm in the best university in Switzerland. I learned my fourth language, which is German. I learned it from zero. I have a wonderful fiance. I live the life I always wanted when I was a child, because when I was a child, I just always wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to earn the love, because I had to earn the love. I had to do sexual pleasures. I had to show my body. I had to be someone who I wasn't. But right now, I got this chance and I worked for it. I'm not saying it's just gonna come into your lap. You have to fight for it. And right now, I'm not afraid. As I said, the most powerful moment was when I looked Mark in his eyes and I told him, I'm not afraid of you anymore. Plain and simple. And he just looked down. He couldn't even look at me. Because the way he remembered me as this desperate poor girl who would do anything for $10. And right now I'm not gonna praise myself successful, but the way I turned my life around, how happy I am. And I'm not now saying that my past never happened. I'm not saying that. I'm proud of my past because it did shape me to the person I am today. I'm never gonna leave my past behind. I'm never gonna hide it. I'm gonna use it and turn it into, which was a tragedy, into a success story. And just to show it that once I was this prostitute who was walking the street in a mini skirt, who was offering blowjobs for 20 francs and taking cocaine in the bathroom. Now I'm a fiance. Now I'm in the best university in Switzerland. I have a future. I'm working on a book and a movie. And if I can do it, everyone can do it. You just need to take the hope and take the leap of and believe in yourself, just the way I did. Of course, it's not going to be easy. Of course not. You're going to go through many trials. You're going to be challenged. You're going to be bullied, just the way I was by my pimp. But once you're on the other side, and once you can look him in the eyes or not look him, it doesn't matter. But once you can say, I'm not afraid of you anymore, you take that power back to yourself, which he took from you, because the pimps take away your power. And once you claim it back, it's done. They don't hold nothing against anymore above you, above your head. Screw them. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
Screw.
absolutely screw them. And that, yeah, that I'm not afraid of you anymore. That really sticks out. But, if there is a movie, that's some great actress is going to want to say those words, I think.
It is. Can I tell why was it so special? Because I didn't even have to come to the court case. It was mostly like arranged and my lawyer comes, but I said, you know what, I want to come, I want to see him. And the funniest part was he had no idea that I was coming to the court case. So when the court opened and he had to say something, he was like, yeah, why doesn't she come and say it here to my face? And then, like 1 minute later, I actually came out because he thought I wasn't there. And then I told him into his face and he started crying. So I think that moment, the money didn't matter, nothing mattered. Because before, I remember him when he used to beat me, when he used to feel sorry for that, you know what, for that asshole, when I used to beg for his attention, for his love, just for 1 second, when I was crying for mercy, when he told me, Rose, you're a loser. You don't. Your family doesn't love you. You don't have friends. You don't have a future. You're meant to be a prostitute. And then when I came out and just told him, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And I told him, look me in the eyes. He didn't want to look me in the eyes. Then I just walked out. And that, and I cannot explain to you how liberating that felt.
Look, I think that's a great positive note to finish on. It's an amazing story. So I'll put those links in the description. So there'll be the comic, a link to the interview, which, yeah, like I mentioned, is on from what I understand, a big network in Switzerland. I think it's Sweden
Yeah.
again, Switzerland there. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so that was Rose. Like I said, Rose is an alias
Mm-hmm.
that she's going by at the moment. She's getting a psychology degree and has some offers for documentaries, and I'm not surprised just hearing her story as well. So was there anything that you wanted to finish with, that you wanted to say some final words before we finish?
Well, honestly, what I can say is that I'm very grateful that I had an interview with you. Even when I have the next one or the next one after that, I'm just, as I said, even if I change one girl's life, one or even one man's life, we did a change in the world. And this is not about money. This is not about fame. This is not about personal gain, I think, for either of us. This is genuinely to help spread the word and help those girls, because we have been scrutinized. We have been always called, even after the fact, we're called prostitutes. We're looked as garbage, and we're not. And I just want to share my story that since childhood, I went through all of that. I was the product of the state. I was already, as you can see, I was always meant to be a prostitute. but I beat it. I beat it. I beat my destiny almost, and I became someone else, someone very special. And I do believe there's lots of love in this world, even though there's many darkness, even though there's many horrible things happening. When you find that love and you fight for it and that hope, you can prevail. And just ask for help, share your story, and don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't ever be that. Thank you. It's really my story. And
yeah, that's it. I'll leave those links in the description.
mhm.
And I guess keep an eye out for this story to be in a movie or documentary
It
or
is. Well, people
and
are already asking the one movie deals documentary because I was very candid. The way I told my story, I wasn't shy about the details. I also told my mistakes. I also told my darknesses, my embarrassing moments. And I think that makes it much more authentic for the viewer as well when someone's very candid about it. And yeah, there are plans for a movie documentary, and let's see very slowly what's going to be of it.
amazing. And yeah, this is with what's happening online at the moment and certain misinformation. This is very important information to get out as well. So if everyone can please share this if you've listened all the way through. And if Rose does, as she mentioned, come out public and do other certain things, I'll be sure to share it as well and give plugs for that as well. Keep an eye out for that. So yeah, thanks. I hope everyone enjoyed this as much as I did. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much.
And yeah, and I hope everyone that was confused about the sort of trafficking that Andrew and Tristan Tate are accused of understand a bit more clearer now after hearing a very similar situation. So that's it. Thank you, Rose, and
thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries.
And if anyone has a question, please free to talk with Gadget, and then you can contact me anytime, of course.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Rose, and
thank you.
No worries.
We get this promise that we will get a better life, cleaning or something, and we get trafficked. And when we get trafficked, they're like, yeah, you weren't kidnapped. You can go, right? There's no case. But we have to teach, we have to make an impact that human trafficking is not just kidnapping, it's coercing, it's taking someone from the place, manipulating, and that's why I spoke up.